Hello friends, it's Mindy again with another semicircular canal dehiscence video. I got a really good question from someone about what to ask the surgeon before you get surgery. And I thought it was a really good question and thought this would be a good topic to talk about. A lot of these things I've kind of glazed over, but I thought that would be good to go over kind of all of them. So I feel like I had asked my surgeon, I went in with a list of questions to ask. One that he was actually like, that was a really good question, was, is my surgery going to be different if I am bilateral? So I have semicircular canal dehiscence in both of my ears, but it was worst in my right ear. I had to think, in my right ear. My left ear isn't as bad. And I was curious if my recovery was going to be harder or worse since I have a bilateral dehiscence. And he said, he's like, I don't think it will actually. He's like, I haven't ever heard of someone being worse off for recovery. Now, if I was to get the surgery in my left ear, I think the recovery would be longer and possibly a little bit harder because every single time you plug up one of your canals, it's taking one more piece away from you of like your balance and your vestibular system. That's just my thought. But okay, so one thing I wish I would have asked the doctor a lot more was how are things going to feel? Like, what is it going to be like? I asked a lot of questions like, am I going to die and stuff? And he said, no, you're not going to die. But like, that was my main concern, like I was just really scared of like, what am I going to be like afterwards? But I didn't ask a lot of questions about like, what is it going to feel like to have my ear canal plugged? I didn't think about it. I felt like my ear was stuffed with cotton. Like that was my first thought, was it just feels like it is stuffed up. And I couldn't hear very well out of this ear, out of my right ear for a little while. And it felt weird. And I did have tinnitus. I didn't realize I was going to have tinnitus. Just didn't think to ask. And the doctor, I don't think he mentioned that. So yeah, that's one thing I would have asked. I did ask him about my prescriptions because I am on Adderall and bupropion. I don't know how to say that, for depression and then the ADHD. And so I asked like if I should take my medication like the day of, like how long am I going to be off my medication? So that would be a good question to ask. And my doctor had just said a couple days, you don't take it the day of, and then a couple days after, to not take it. I wish I would have asked if there were going to be any other bodily complications like constipation. That's a big one. Like I totally think the doctor should have told me about that, which is kind of common for any surgery. Apparently, I just didn't know. I've never had surgery. So just the pain meds make you constipated. So definitely have some stool softener. I also wish I would have asked about the CPAP because it didn't even cross my mind to ask about that. And that was a big deal to me. Like, I wish that I could have prepared myself mentally for that. And maybe gotten a few things to help. Like I got a little strap to go around my mouth or my head to kind of hold my jaw. And I wish I would have known that. I wish I would have had that in advance before I had the surgery. Also oxygen. I was on oxygen. And that was mostly just as a precaution since I couldn't use my CPAP. But I hated oxygen so bad. It was an oxygen condenser and it was incredibly loud. So I would ask your doctor about that. If you do use a CPAP, should I use oxygen and what can I expect with that? I would also ask what things should I avoid completely, like blowing your nose. I had no idea I couldn't do that. Bearing down, straining yourself, lifting things, all these things I was supposed to avoid, and I had no idea. Like just today, there's so many things that you just don't think about. You just do, and then you're like, oh shoot, I shouldn't have done that. So just be preparing yourself for that in advance so that you aren't terrified that you just ruined your surgery. Like today I had an arm wrestle with my daughter, and I was like, oh my gosh, I should not have done that. I just didn't think about it. So don't have arm wrestles right after your surgery. I'm actually 5 weeks post-op now, almost, and I was fine, but I still, you should really be careful for like 8 weeks after. Physical therapy. I wish I would have asked, like, what is physical therapy like? What can I expect? And driving, that's always a big concern for most people. How long do I have to wait before I can drive? My doctor said at the very least 4 weeks, but usually more like 6 to 8 weeks. I did just drive for the first time the other day, and I'm almost to 5 weeks, and I did just fine. They don't tell you when you can drive, or when, you know, they're not like tracking you, monitoring you, or anything like that. Like, you kind of decide. At least that's how it was for me. My physical therapist said, I'm not going to tell you when you can drive. You can decide when you can drive, but definitely not before 4 weeks. So plan for that, prepare for that. The hospital stay, I didn't really think to ask how long. It was not that big of a shocker, but it was just 2 days. I was there, I had my surgery, and I think had 1 full day of recovery there at the hospital, and then like a half of a day the next day. So those are just kind of a few random questions that, I don't know, I felt like I just didn't ask enough of, like, what are things going to be like after. I was still like very much thinking of, like, is this still the right choice for me? Should I still do this? And I mean, at that point, I just needed to be asking more of like recovery questions. What are things going to be like? So yeah, just make sure you have stool softener. Make sure you have the pain med. Like, I just had some Tylenol on hand, like extra strength Tylenol, because I hated the prescription meds, and I didn't like how they made me feel. I had psycho dreams, and I didn't like them. So I got on the regular Tylenol as soon as possible, and it was within, I think, 5 or 6 or so days that I was just on the regular extra strength Tylenol. So I really didn't use the prescription as much as I could have. But yeah, those are just some of the thoughts that were the worst or the most important that I wish I would have asked. So I hope that helps, and I hope you have a good day. See ya.